Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Increasing Motivation with Gamification webinar from the Center for Teaching and Learning. Our presenter today is Nathan Tillett, CTL's Instructional Media Developer and an adjunct faculty member for Regent's Animation Program. Nathan has a Quality Matters certification and is proficient in video production and editing, graphic design, illustration, and 2D and 3D animation. If you have any questions during the webinar, please raise your hand using the raise hand icon in the bottom middle of your screen, or type your question into the chat tool on the bottom right of your screen. I'll turn it over to Nathan now, who will introduce you to some of the common elements of gamification that can help increase learner interest and engagement.
Oh, thank you, Jackie, for that warm introduction. I appreciate that. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing today? I see we still have some people coming in, so welcome everyone who's just joining. Great. I see some familiar names in the guest list today.
Hey, Nathan.
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty well. It's Kyle.
Hey, Kyle. I see Marciana's in there. Hi.
Hello.
All right, so let me jump over to my controls here. All right, so let's see, where is my, okay, here it is. Right. So our agenda today. So I want, like Jackie introduced me, I want to thank you for attending today's CTL webinar, Increasing Motivation with Gamification. Today we're going to be talking about unpacking gamification, the edutainment or serious design approach, the fundamentals of game theory, and some design approach using some game elements. And how you can incorporate these in your everyday training, your courses, and then things that you might be doing with your students both on campus and online. So first, before we dive right in, I want to ask you a question. So let's do a quick poll. Which of these do you feel best describes the term gamification? So I think Jackie's going to help me out with the polling. Jackie, you're going to, yep, here we go. So you can just select one of these four, okay? It's the process of adding games or game-like elements to something to encourage participation, removing boring or static elements with animation and interactivity, adding point scoring, competencies, hang on, it's in the, competition and rules of play to educational activities, and the use of game-like experiences to digitally engage and motivate people to achieve their goals. So, responses are coming in.
Can I only pick one?
Yeah, I think you can only pick one. We'll change your answer if you do that. Looks like the majority of you are choosing option 4. That's good. Now, all of these do fit in to what describes the term gamification. 4 is more leaning towards that, but all of these elements do answer this. So gamification is an emergent approach to instruction that facilitates learning and encourages motivation through the uses of game elements, the mechanics, and game-based thinking. Now, in gamification, the student does not play an entire game from start to finish. Rather, they participate in activities that would include elements from games such as earning points, overcoming a challenge, or receiving badges for accomplishing tasks. The idea is to integrate game-based elements more commonly seen in video, entertainment-focused, or the mobile games we play, and it also includes instructional environments. While it doesn't rely on technology, the advent of technological devices has made this development and deployment of gamification more ubiquitous. Now, the term gamification, it first appeared around in 2008, originating in the digital media industry, and it really didn't gain widespread recognition until somewhere around 2010. Now, there is a general agreement about the basic tenets of gamification. Gamification has been defined as the process of using game thinking and mechanics to engage audiences and solve problems. It's also using game techniques to make activities more engaging and fun. Also using game-based mechanics, aesthetics, and game thinking to engage people, motivate action, promote learning, and solve problems. While there is a relative consensus around the definition of gamification, the complication arises when one tries to go beyond the surface definition and identify the elements game mechanics, and game-based thinking that constitute games, which in turn would be the elements of gamification. The difficult aspect of gamification is defining what constitutes a game mechanic or an element of a game or even game-based thinking. Now, one place to start is that we break the concept of game into its component pieces in an attempt to answer the question, what elements make a game? I'm going to close. All right, we can stop the poll and let's move on. So here are your elements or the fundamentals of game theory. So some of these are the elements that make up a game. So when we play games, many of you have played games before, I hope. Board games, probably mobile games, maybe even some video games. Games usually always have goals, levels, challenges, a point system in some cases, exploration of the world. You take risk in a game. There's competitions between others, like competition for, like, say, Words of Friends. Man, I played that game like crazy and always wanted to beat my friends when I did that. Discovery, you got feedback, and then there was rewards. So now if you take these elements here and you categorize the elements listed there, you can identify 4 major categories under which most of these elements can be categorized. The categorizations are engagement, autonomy, mastery, and the sense of progression. The concept of rules, which also aligns with goals, is under autonomy because rules provide guidelines and boundaries under which a learner would operate when engaging with the gamification learning experience. Now, here are some of the elements that you can use in everyday social things within courses, training, workshops. So here on the screen are some pictures, and I'll go over them. So the first one on the left, the blue circle, is choice. Now, choice you can use to increase engagement and the effectiveness of e-learning, the effectiveness of training, that can provide learners with a great amount of choice and control of the learning activity. You're going to let them have input into what to initiate or terminate an activity, what direction they want to pursue in the training or in the level of difficulty of the instruction. Now, these subtle but important control issues allow the learner to feel a sense of autonomy, self-direction, and motivation. The one below that, with the little people here, look like chess pieces, are feedback. Now, one type of feedback that's often used in games and gamification that helps with learning is confirmational feedback. Now, confirmational feedback is designed to indicate the degrees of rightness or wrongness of a response, action, or activity. Now, feedback immediately informs the learner if she did the right thing, or if he or she, did the right thing, the wrong thing, or if it was somewhere in the middle, but doesn't tell the learner how to correct the action. Now, a middle graphic here is branching. I love branching. I use branching in my courses that I teach here at Regent. Now, branching, think of it branching as like stories, even film stories, even stories that we read in books. Stories that have plot, something happens. Now, these are elements that move the learner from a point of unknown to the point of knowing or realizing new knowledge. The elements of the story are either emergent meaning, the elements are a result of what the learner does with the context of the game to drive the story, or predetermined, which means that the elements are pre-generated and the learner's actions triggers that element or part of the story. Now, for example, a branching simulation has many pre-generated decision points. A virtual world role play with people acting as different characters in a digital role play may have many opportunities for emergent story progression within the confines of the stated scenario. Next up there in our top right corner is badges. Now, badging is good for indicating non-linear knowledge acquisition. Leveling tends to build upon the previous skill. So you could do, like, I'm currently doing an animation course online. I have badges in there. As you go through the steps with photography, you do your first assignment. After you do the first assignments and discussion, you get a badge. You're level 1. You're a novice novice photographer. As you complete more assignments and you turn in more pictures and you move forward, you're an amateur photographer. And as you go through and you've completed your tests, and this all ranges on the amount of points you get on the assignment, you're now what is considered an expert photographer. Now, badging can serve two purposes. One is to micro credential a person. This means that the badge certifies that someone can do what they need to do. It is a validation and can't speak today. A verification of actual knowledge. The other is simply a recognition that the person took part in a certain activity or attended a certain event. Something simple. And our last course or gamification element in a course is the course certificate. Now, you can do course certificates yourself. You can build them. Now, if you're using a Blackboard course or even a Blackboard organization, you can actually implement course certifications. Now, Blackboard does with achievements that will allow you to create opportunities for students to earn recognition of their work. It's very similar with badges. Let's say after your students or learners have completed the training, and they've done all the levels of training. So each level of training, they earn a badge, and after so many badges, they earn the course certificate. This will designate the criteria for the issuing all the achievements and say, okay, you have completed all the elements needed. Excuse me, my phone is going off. All the elements needed to earn this course certification. Now, other tools for gamification. So we have two tools here. Polling everywhere is a great little thing that allows you, just like we have with Blackboard Collaborate, it really gets into, you can use it in the classroom, you could use it in training things. It's a great handy little device. All your students can use it. You can use it in high enrollment classrooms. You could do, if you don't have learners with phones or they want to break out their phones, there is a web feature for it. I know some of our large enrollment classes do use this. I've used it before, and I would have liked to use it today, but I didn't get it out in the email in time. I would have set you guys up to actually do the poll and done the polling with that rather than the polling in Blackboard Collaborate. Now, the last little fun tool is Kahoot. Now, this is generated more towards the K-12 environment, but can be used for larger enrollment in the classrooms today. It's very fun. It's very game designed. It has a lot of colorful elements, a lot of the stuff that you would see in gaming, very modern and unique design. But yeah, I've never used it personally. I've known some people that use it and they swear by it. They love it. They really get the students involved, and it really feels like that game. Like you're in a game, you're playing a game, you're doing something with a game, especially in a team environment or something like that. It works really, really well. Poll Everywhere feels like you're more of your basic surveying websites, that kind of thing, where you ask a question and then there it is to answer it. Very modern design, very slim, sleek design. Excuse me. All right, before we end the poll, I wanted to come back and ask if there's any questions. I know I went really fast through all the elements today. I wasn't sure. I've been practicing today. I didn't know how long it was going to take me to do today's webinar. I know we have it blocked for 30 minutes, but we do have time for questions. I know there's a number of us in here today. We have 12. Wow, that's exciting. Haven't seen this many people in a webinar workshop before. So, all right, what's up, Kyle?
Yeah, Nathan, thank you. So you mentioned these poll everywhere in the Kahoot.
Yeah.
Are you saying this would be better use for on-campus sections, and we should continue to use the Blackboard tools for running polls, or is there an additional value that these offer that the Blackboard tools don't already offer?
I think there's a different value because it allows you to ask questions in class right there. So, if you have, I've seen it done with the larger enrollment classrooms that are done over in our Robertson Hall building that have 70 students to a class, trying to have everyone raise their hand and count everything. When here you could pull it up, and if it's in an announcement ahead of time and all the students are getting it, they can go right to it, and the teacher or facilitator of the training has the responses right there to their own personal device, rather than having to be signed into Blackboard to use a Blackboard tool. And a lot of this stuff can be stored and it can be integrated. I don't know off the top of my head if Poll Everywhere can be integrated or not, but I do know that it is online and free of charge to use. So I think it will work really well for that at that moment kind of thing, rather than have everyone sign into a Blackboard tool.
Okay, so for the online learners, though, the ones that are mostly asynchronous, would you recommend this to be used in conjunction with maybe a live session, or perhaps maybe the live session that you did here today? You obviously used the polling feature as opposed to one of these others. Is there a value that these offer in the online environment that the Blackboard does not?
Yes. In my opinion, yes. I mean, like say for instance today's poll. Today's poll with Blackboard Collaborate, like I do really enjoy Blackboard Collaborate very, very well, but the issue with the polling feature is that you only get a number. Like you pull up the poll, you see the responses, and it just says 1, 2, or 3. There's no response associated with it. So unless I had it on the screen that gave you your options to choose from, you wouldn't really know what to pick. So I think by using something like this, where you can predetermine your answers for the users to select, will work and do beneficial, even if you're doing an asynchronous or an online at the time session with our online learners. I think a third-party piece would benefit a little better than this tool that we're using today.
Great, thanks.
Hmm? Jackie, did we have any other questions? I don't see any other hands raised.
Well,
Oh, Kyle, you have?
yeah, I mean, hey, I mean, if no one else is going to chirp in, I'll take up your time.
Sure.
So if as an instructor, if I wanted to learn more about how to actually do this within Blackboard, look at those alignment features, look at the ways of how would I go about doing that? You know, I'm not a course designer. I work within courses that are already pre-designed, but I have some flexibility. How can I learn more about this and enact it?
You could, the best way would be to contact us, contact CTL, set up an appointment. We can schedule with you and get myself and one of our instructional designers or another member of the media team to sit with you, work with you, figure out what it is you want to do, how to implement it, and the best practices for it. Yeah, you can easily make an appointment. You could the best way to do it is to contact CTL through CTL's email at ctl@regent.edu, or give us a call. Since you're on campus, I mean, you could probably come by anytime and we can fit you in and hook you up and see what you want to do.
Cool. I just might do that.
Yeah, so I want to go over, so we did some questions. I wanted to go over an example. Like I'm using something in one of my courses because one thing that I've seen when it comes to, like, I use a point system in one of my animation classes, because a lot of my animation students are game students. They're gamers, right? They love to play video games. So I try to treat my assignments in my classroom as a game type environment almost, or at least I have the elements that are in there. So what I've done, and I'm doing it recently with a course now, is instead of grades that max out at 100%, I'm doing experience points. So when when they get a grade of like a 60% on an assignment, they feel disappointed. It'll show, they come to me and like, man, I didn't know that I was going to get such a bad grade. Can I do it again? Will you help me? And then now with like this late point system, that, or the late assignment system that we have and that we're pushing in, it does discourage that. They're going to end up sitting with this 60%, and now depression sets in and they think they're going to do a really poor job throughout the whole class. So what I'm doing is changing out. I'm not necessarily getting rid of the percentages. So if you think back to games, the player will gain points according to his or her performance and their achievements in the game. So for now in the class, what I'm doing is the only way to do is to go up. So instead of grades, they get points. So they'll get 500 experience points for doing their homework. They'll get up to 1,000 experience points for a quiz. They'll get 300 experience points for participation in the class, which is bringing the materials or being involved in in-class discussions. Now, to the grades off their minds, each unit of what we're doing, like you say, the weeks, sometimes our courses are units instead of weeks. I'm telling them each week as a level. So each level, a student needs to gain at least 11,000 experience points to continue to the next level, and up to 20,000 to get the top score. So as you can see, I choose the big numbers to get as far as I can away from that notorious 100 score. Now I'm making things more interesting. So like if a student will gain 20,000 experience points, he or she can use points to help them move to the next level. This gives them a better starting point over the others. Hence, competition plus rewards equals motivation. So they can only gain points, not lose them. That's done in some of our grades. This way, students will count up from 0. Now, I know like I've done this because it's very motivating, and I know when you lose points from 100% it becomes demotivating if they don't get that full 100% mark. So any effort that they do can be rewarded by points. So I also help them out with, like, if they've done something in the class with helping a student with something. If I see them helping students, and as I'm coming around, like my classes are full at 15 for my animation class for the second lab. I'll see students help. I'll mark it down. That student earns extra experience points, or they'll earn a badge, like you've earned a badge, helping hand, that kind of thing. And these things, they're worth more experience points, so they pushes them up. And then at the end, during the midpoint or like midterms and stuff, I will actually do a score so everyone can see where everyone is. And that also just helps with the motivation and the competition within each student. Kyle, you had another question.
You mentioned that they kind of don't necessarily go to the next level until they've earned enough points. For a Blackboard environment, would we tie that to an adaptive release feature, or
Yes.
how might that look?
Yeah, because I'm on campus, I have it so that when everything is adaptive release after they submit their work. So they get points for submitting work on time. It's all calculated in, and once they don't reach a certain point level, the next assignment doesn't release. So therefore, they obviously, it looks like they can't move forward. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to leave them behind. So I after a while and they do stuff, I will increase the points based on what they do in the class, and the level will unlock. But it unlocks at certain times, and then that also affects their score. So when they see the overall chart that I show everyone, they can see where they line up with everybody else. They're like, oh, I need to do this a little better and get things turned in on time because I get more points that way. But adaptive release is the most effective way if you're using a Blackboard.
So could you tie the adaptive release to an either-or scenario? Either they get enough points to go to the next level, or they get high enough grades on the assignments to go to the next level, or does it have to be one or the other?
No, you can do rules. I have one. I'd use it when they get a certain amount of points, it unlocks the next one. We can definitely look at it together and see if we can do one or the other. I have not tried one or the other. I've always just chose one or the other, not both together. I'll go by the points. If they haven't met their point scale, the next thing doesn't unlock. Oh, Jackie says yes, you can. So yeah, there's your answer to that. We can do one or the other together.
Well, that'll be interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Marciana, you had a question.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me now?
I can. How are you?
I don't know. Hold on one second. Is this something that we can implement midway? Or I mean, I'm like 5 weeks in now or 6 weeks in now, and I really like this because actually, I just literally got an email from a student who was very discouraged by me docking some points. And I mean, I've had that happen 3 times now, and I really like your system of using points instead of grades. I'm just wondering, is this something that could be switched midway, or would I have to start this,
Do you have
next
do you
semester?
have an 8-week or 15-week class?
16-week.
16-week?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel like you probably incorporate it midway. I mean, you could let your students know. I would say you probably want to do maybe a Regent Live initiative where you have another meeting and you're talking about changing up how things are graded.
Okay.
And how you're going to be doing it, and let them know, and then you could set the scores for each assignment or what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that way that they're, instead of seeing the way that I'm doing it, where they're losing points, and they can't get it back. It's just they're earning points, and they can only go up from there. Yeah, I think right now it's early enough still. I mean, we're at week 6. I'd say if you're at week 10, that might be a problem, but I think being at week 6, so you could definitely start pushing this forward.
Okay, I think that's a great idea. I'm so glad that you shared that because, like I said, literally, I just got an email with a student who was very discouraged. So.
And since I've been helping you with one of your other classes you're doing, we could schedule an email and make a time and work online together and get that moving for you.
Perfect. I'll send you an email just so we can coordinate that. Thank you.
No problem. Jackie, you see any other questions? I know we're getting to that post mark. No? All right. Let me advance the slide forward here. All right. So before we end, I want to ask you about another quick poll with me. Take another quick poll. So I want to rate your level of willingness to try a gaming element in one of your upcoming courses or training developments you have. So, Jack, if we can fire that poll back up, let me get that in here. Yeah, 3 responses. So 1, you're not convinced yet, not sure about gamification, don't know if you want to give it a shot. 2, you're willing to try it. And 3, you can't wait to try it out. Oh, we got some 3s. Oh, I think some people are excited. We got some I'm willing to try it. We have a nope, not convinced yet. No, looks like some people want to give it a shot. I mean, I tell you, I'm using it. I think it locked it in. I really enjoy gamification. I think being a person that plays games and has dealt with games, I really see the reward for it, especially now with doing the experience points and how it just goes up from there. The students, they're not worried about that 60%, that 75% kind of grade. They just see, there's 70, 300, 400, 500 experience points, and it just keeps going up to their overall score. Now, this does, balance itself out. I didn't mention that, but the certain range of score does still feed up to that 100% they would get for the class. It's just they don't see that end of it, so they don't have to worry about it and get discouraged of it. So we did have one other question from Nolte. I think that's how you.
Yes.
Yes.
Can
Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. How are you?
Great. So I actually teach over in the government school, and in my on-campus classes, I do a lot of active learning stuff with in-class simulations and role-playing type stuff. And I'm really struggling to figure out how to adapt that for the online learning environment. So just any suggestions you have from a course design perspective of how to sort of take some of those simulations over to the online environment would be really helpful.
All right. I mean, I'd love to talk to you more about it. I know we're hitting our mark, so how about we discuss after this session here if you've got some time?
Yeah,
you can give me a call, or I can give you a call, and we can see where we can go from there.
Yeah, that sounds good. What's your extension?
4791.
All right, perfect. We'll do. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. I think that's going to do it for today, Jackie.
This concludes the audio portion of today's webinar. If you have further questions, as Nathan said, you can give him a call. I put his extension there. We will hang out here for the next 10 minutes or so, so if you want to type something into the chat, feel free to do that as well. Want to thank our presenter, Nathan Tillett, and also thank all of y'all for joining us for today's webinar. We will be sending you a link to the webinar recording and a feedback survey within the next 24 hours, and we would appreciate y'all just taking the time to fill that out for us. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank y'all. Thank you, Jackie.